on Aging will come to order. Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases many of you here today have had firsthand experiences with the devastating Susie Whittington, whose mother, Lynn Snow, a well-known artist who captured Maine so beautifully, tragically died in 2013 from the deadliest tick-borne disease known as Powassan. Thank you so much, Susie, for being here with us today. Tick Lab for hosting this hearing. I just toured the lab and I was so impressed with the extraordinary research and work that is going on here. I saw firsthand how its outstanding work is advancing our care and how the employees of the lab are working every day to protect Mainers. They also do a host of other important work in this lab, and it was wonderful to learn more about it. So thank you, Jim Dill, for arranging for the tour and for all you did to welcome us. In Maine last year, there were approximately 1,400 new cases of Lyme disease, near 2010, as we can see from this chart. Listen of Lyme disease in Maine is the highest in the country at 107 cases per 100,000 Mainers, which is 10 times higher than the national average. I was talking with President Joan, I'm drawing a blank, Fundy Marini here today, and talking about the work that the lab is doing and the university is doing, and how incredible this lab will make available to anyone who wants one, and which our wardens and other state can use. On the rise. For example, anaplasmosis related to rickets has increased by more than 5-fold. While ticks do not discriminate and the diseases affect Americans of all ages, it would be appropriate for us to hold this hearing. From children to seniors, far too many Americans with Lyme disease experience a an accurate diagnosis. She went witnesses. In addition to the notion that Lyme disease can impose. It is also expensive. Medical costs of Lyme disease are estimated at $1.3 billion per year. When accounting for indirect medical costs, including the loss of work, the annual costs balloon to $75 billion. A correct and early diagnosis can reduce costs and improve the prognosis, but we have a long way to go. When HIV became a public health crisis, a gold standard for identification and treatment was developed within 10 years. Lyme disease was identified more than 40 years ago, yet there still is no gold standard for treatment. Existing prevention, education, and diagnostic efforts are helpful, but remain fragmented. It is time for us to unite in the fight against ticks. Earlier this year, I introduced a bipartisan bill with Minnesota Senator Tina Smith and my Maine colleague, Senator Angus King. It's called the Tick Act. Tick in the name of our bill stands for ticks, identify, control, and knock out. Through a uniform and unified approach, this legislation would arm local communities and states with the resources they need for prevention, early detection, and treatment of tick-borne diseases. The Tick Act would apply a three-pronged approach to tackle Lyme and other tick and vector-borne diseases. First, it would establish an office to develop a national strategy to prevent tick-borne diseases. Second, the bill reauthorize the Centers for Disease Control, regional centers of excellence for vector-borne diseases that have led the scientific response to fighting ticks. Finally, the bill would establish efforts to improve data collection and analysis, early detection and diagnosis, treatment, and public awareness. And that indeed is one of the purposes of our hearing today, is to increase public awareness. To have a truly extraordinary group of witnesses, including national, state, and local. Have two individuals who are going to share with us their personal experiences with Lyme disease. These individuals will give us their insights on what it has been like to have Lyme disease and their journey and their advocacy efforts with us. They are Paula Jackson-Jones and Christopher Philbrook, and I will introduce them in more detail in just one moment. We will now turn to our witnesses. First, I'm pleased to welcome the Director of the Division on Vector-Borne Diseases at the Center National Authority on Tick-Borne Diseases and on Vector-Borne Diseases more generally. Dr. Peterson has worked through epidemics in the past, from HIV to Zika. Today, he is leading the fight against. Peterson, we are delighted that you've traveled so far to be with us today. And I want to note his personal effort to rearrange his schedule because his daughter is getting married this weekend. So he really has made an extraordinary effort to be with us. Next, we will hear from Dr. James Dill, who is also our gracious host here at the University of Maine Cooperative and Research Lab. Dr. Dill serves as the lab coordinator as well as a pest management specialist. His leadership on tick-borne diseases is well known in Maine, both as a scientist and as a policymaker since he serves in the state Senate. Next, we will hear from Dr. Center of Maine in Cumberland Forsyth. Dr. McCloy brings a background of public health and a wealth of knowledge in providing care to patients with tick-borne diseases. I'm very pleased that Paula Jackson Jones, an extraordinary advocate who nonprofit organization, the Mid-Coast Lyme Disease Support and Education Association, and she'll be testifying today. Her work has been recognized. The union recognized her organization with an award last month, and she's also been honored to be chosen as a Point of Light, a national recognition for her service for others. You may remember that that organization was first started by President George Bush. And finally, we will hear from a personal friend and former staffer of mine, Christopher Philbrook, who will for years and how well I remember when he was working with me and trying to figure out this bizarre set of symptoms that he had. He will describe how this disease has affected his life, and I'm very thankful of his willingness to be public with his story. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We look forward to hearing with you. Before we do that, I want to do one brief advertisement here for the lab. So I want you all to pick up the tick removal kit that you will find on your chair. And this will be very helpful to you if you find, after walking in the woods or gardening or hunting, just being outside, that you have picked up a tick. And it will tell you what to do. And the University of Maine does an extraordinary job in identifying ticks and also telling you whether or not they carry a pathogen. Dr. Peterson, thank you for being here. Please proceed.
Good morning, Chairwoman Collins. I'm Dr. Lyle Peterson, Director of CDC's Division of Vector-Borne Diseases. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today on our efforts to protect the U.S. from the growing threat of vector-borne diseases, and tick-borne diseases in particular. We appreciate your continued commitment and support in this area. I lead our agency's efforts to research, prevent, and control viruses and bacteria spread by mosquito, tick, and flea vectors. These vectors transmit over 100 pathogens known to infect people, including West Nile, Zika, Lyme disease, and plague. We recently examined trends in vector-borne diseases and found that the reported cases in the U.S. tripled from 2004 to 2016. During this same period, tick-borne disease cases more than doubled, and the U.S. experienced several mosquito-borne outbreaks, including Zika. In 2017, reported cases again increased for all nationally notifiable tick-borne diseases. Diseases in Maine. Reported cases continue to rise steadily over time, with more than 98% of them being tick-borne. On a population basis, as Senator Collins noted, Maine had the highest incidence of Lyme disease in the nation, with more than 1,800 cases of Lyme disease reported in just 1 year. Maine also had the second highest incidence of anaplasmosis, second only to Vermont. These statistics are of great concern to us, and we're working closely with